Imagine watching a line of redcoats, shoulder to shoulder, marching into a hail of lead. Why on earth would soldiers in the American Revolution stand in neat rows, just waiting to get shot? It seems insane today, but here's the truth. They weren't stupid. Tactics were dictated by the weapons in their hands. Smoothbore muskets like the British Brown Bess were wildly inaccurate beyond 50 yards. A single shot? Basically a gamble. But mass them together in lines and you create a wall of lead. Volley fire that overwhelms the enemy through sheer volume. That's why armies drilled to fire in unison. Not bravery alone, but physics. One man misses, 100 together kill. Enter the American long rifle, accurate at 200 yards, a game changer for skirmishers. But it came with trade-offs that kept lines dominant. The Brown Bess, the British Army's workhorse musket, and the reason lines ruled the battlefield. This .75 caliber beast had a smoothbore barrel, no grooves inside. It was heavy, rugged, and built for line infantry. British redcoats and colonial militia alike carried versions of it as their standard weapon. But here's the catch. Accuracy sucked. Why? The musket ball was loose-fitting, smaller than the barrel to load fast in combat. When fired, it rattled around like a knuckleball in baseball, wobbling out unpredictably. Effective range? Maybe 50 to 100 yards. Beyond that, you might as well throw rocks. Still, it was deadly, because of speed. A trained soldier could reload in 15 to 20 seconds. Drop the ball, ram it down, prime, and fire. That's 3 to 4 shots per minute, no fuss. One shot alone, a lottery. But line up 100 men, drill them to level their muskets, not aim, as the British manual said, and fire together. That's math over precision, a statistical wall of lead that shreds anything in front. Volume beats accuracy every time. So, if muskets were inaccurate, how did American riflemen hit targets at 200 yards? That's where the long rifle comes in. The American long rifle, often called the Pennsylvania or Kentucky rifle, a civilian hunting gun turned revolutionary sniper. Unlike the smoothbore musket, this weapon had rifling, spiral grooves cut inside the barrel. When you fire, those grooves grab the ball and spin it out, like a quarterback throwing a tight football spiral. That spin stabilizes the flight, making it way more accurate than a musket's wild knuckleball. Range? Game changer. A musket might hit reliably at 50 to 100 yards. A rifle in skilled hands? 200 yards or more. Suddenly you could aim at specific targets, not just hope for the best. But here's the big trade-off. Reload speed. For the ball to catch those grooves, it has to fit tight, wrapped in a greased patch to seal it. Ramming it down takes muscle and time. About 1 to 2 shots per minute, half the musket's pace. So riflemen didn't fight in packed lines. They were skirmishers, frontiersmen like Daniel Morgan's famous rifle corps, picking off targets from cover, trees, fences, rocks. They often paired up. One shoots while the other reloads. And they aimed high. Officers, artillery crews, creating real psychological terror for the British, who called them widowmakers. But the rifle had one fatal weakness. And it's the reason armies still relied on muskets and lines. The bayonet. The rifle's range made it a killer from afar, but up close, that's where it fell apart. Enter the fatal flaw, the bayonet. The musket's secret weapon wasn't just the shot, it was the 17-inch blade you snapped on the end. For the British, doctrine was simple. Fire volleys to soften them up, then close the distance and charge with cold steel. A musket wasn't a gun anymore. It was a spear in a soldier's hands. Rifles? Most didn't even have bayonets. Their longer, thinner barrels were too fragile for that kind of brutal twisting and thrusting. If infantry or cavalry rushed you, accuracy didn't matter. You were done. In the chaos of close combat, reload speed vanished as an advantage. Battles weren't won by marksmanship alone. Smoke choked the air, noise deafened you, fear gripped everyone. Fights often ended when one side panicked and ran. Bayonet charges were psychological hammers, designed to shock, terrify, and force that break. Take Paoli in 1777. British General No. Flint. Grey launched a night attack on American forces. Flints yanked from muskets to stay silent. No shots, just bayonets. It turned into a ruthless close-quarters rout, proving that in the dark or at arm's length, The bayonet ruled, so the rifle was deadly. But the musket and the line were still the backbone of the army. Here's the final verdict. In the American Revolution, the musket and the line won the wars, not because rifles were useless, but because they couldn't do it all. The Brown Bess musket was fast, brutal, and reliable up close, quick reloads for volleys, bayonets for the charge. The rifle, accurate and terrifying at range, but slower to load and helpless in melee. Lines weren't dumb. They were the smartest way to turn inaccurate smoothbores into a machine of mass firepower, volume, speed, and steel. So who was right? The rifleman was the specialist, a disruptor, a sniper, picking off leaders from the shadows. But the musket man in his line, he was the foundation, the reliable force that held ground and broke armies. The British learned fast. After the Revolution, they didn't ignore rifles, they adapted. They issued the Baker rifle to elite units and expanded light infantry tactics. By the Peninsular War against Napoleon, British riflemen like the 95th Regiment became legends for their skirmishing precision, harassing French columns from afar. But back in 1775 to 1783, technology ruled the field. They weren't stupid. They were fighting the only way their weapons allowed. If you've been gripped by this gritty tale of revolution and resilience, consider subscribing to our channel for more immersive dives into the Revolutionary War's pivotal moments. A like and share would help spread these stories far and wide, ensuring the lessons of the past endure. Thank you for joining us in this journey back to the fires in the age of revolution. Until next time, remember, in the heat of battle, courage is forged.